This is the Note Closer Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here today. And I mentioned a week or two ago that we were going to be focused on different markets across the country, some of the hot spots that people love to invest in. You know, that's the great thing about having a podcast. I can focus on markets that I love, that many of you also end up loving as well. And so we're honored today to have a realtor and an investor who've actually known for quite some time. It's a small world where we found out we're connected to other friends and other people all throughout the world, I guess you could say, out there. But our guest today is an expert in the Miami market. She's a real estate agent in Miami, Florida, who also started out in Austin, Texas. She has successful investments in Dallas, Austin, Miami, and a small area in Northeast Texas called Mount Pleasant. She definitely relies on market stats and gut instincts when choosing new investments and executing sales. She also works with a lot of investors, and she'll talk a little about how she's also talked about with a lot of investors who are moving into the note space. So we're honored to have Elles Boggs join us this morning. Good morning, Sarah. How's it going today?
Good morning. Hi, everybody.
So let's talk. Why don't we talk a little about you, kind of how you got in as a realtor and kind of your background experience, and then how you kind of evolved into an investor. You started as an investor first and kind of work our way back that way. How's that sound?
Well, I started in Austin. I graduated from UT.
Hook'em Horns.
Hook'em Horns. And straight out of college, I went to work for a local hotel, and I was ready to use that degree I worked so hard for and paid so much money for. And I was having a really hard time working myself up that food chain. You know, they were writing me up for coming in early and not paying me the salary that I thought I was worth. So I told my mentor at the time, I'm big into mentorship. And I told him, I said, this is just not what I thought I signed up for. And he said, you need to quit that job right now and come work for me. I need to find some land, and I'm going to buy that land and build some homes. And off I went. And that was my introduction into real estate. I worked for a small builder there in Austin and sold all kinds of homes until 2008 happened. Actually, I left before 2008. Miami called my heart out of just nowhere. And 3 weeks later, I was gone. Yeah.
Viva la Miami. And that's actually, I think, how we connected originally. I had some assets. I was looking for some notes. I was looking for some comps, and we were looking to foreclose. And you reached out, and you did some CMAs for me, and we've stayed in contact for a while. And we're also mutual friends with our buddy Sebastian Rusk as well.
Yes, love Sebastian.
Yeah. Hi, Sebastian. I'm sure you'll be watching this shortly. You're like, oh, hey, how do you guys know each other? It's a great thing. But let's talk about the Miami market, because you work with a variety of investors at that neck of the woods, and then also residential and everything. So, moving to Miami as a realtor in 2008 was a really interesting time, huh?
It was scary. It was liberating, to say the least. I knew Miami was such a rich market. There's so much to have there. There's the beautiful condos, but then there's also the distress sales that are sometimes a little quirky. And there's a lot of moving parts, and there's people from all different cultures and all different nations. And it was just totally different than Austin. And that really appealed to me. I really needed that sort of excitement. And I don't want to down the Austin market, because I do love the Austin market. But at that point, I guess I was just burnt out, and I felt monotonous in my job in Austin. And this gave me the richness that I was seeking.
Yeah, I don't think anybody. Yeah, I don't think anybody will deny the richness of Miami and the South Beach area and that whole neck of the woods. It's one of our favorite spots to go in. It's just an energy, a vibe to it. Like a heartbeat, a pulse.
It is.
Kicks up with.
And you're right. Stops.
It never stops. Exactly, 24/7. Something's going on in Miami, and it was such Florida at that time, especially South Florida, was such an interesting time frame. Like you said, a lot of distressed sales, a lot of short sales, a lot of banks had stuff that on their books that they were looking to get rid of. I mean, 10 years ago, it could take you, 18 to 24 months to get a short sale done or a foreclosure done in Miami. And that
they were so backed up, it was unreal.
Exactly. The banks weren't ready for it. And that's why we had a lot of banks going out of business down that neck of the woods. But you've seen it rebound strong, though. Kind of what has driven the Miami rebound in your mindset and your thoughts?
Well, the specific area that I focus on in my residential business is the downtown and Brickell area, which is the area that you see in all the entry videos with the high rises right there in front of the bay. One thing that not a lot of people know about Miami is Miami Beach and Miami are two different cities.
Right.
They're very close, but they're two different cities. And that Ocean Drive with the neon and the Art Deco, that's where people from Miami don't go. That's where the tourists go when they want to get ripped off. And but such as Miami, they say it's a shady place or a sunny place for shady folks. You have to be careful in Miami. But the area that I focused on and that I still focus on in my residential business is the downtown and Brickell area, which is all those high rises in the financial district. And what really drove us there was I guess right when we were coming out of the recession, the Great Recession, Venezuela and Brazil were coming on hard times. And a lot of those people just needed to move their money out before it became in danger. And so they did. And they would just buy anything. And it was kind of a running joke for a while that if you can find a Venezuelan client, they'll buy anything. But, you still try to put them together because you still have that client. You want to keep that relationship. You don't want to just cash your commission check and move on. So it was just pairing people up for a long time, just pair people up. And then things got really bad in Venezuela and they couldn't get their money out anymore. Same thing in Brazil. It was tougher for them. And right around then was when the salt tax thing happened up in the Northeast. And all of these millionaires from Connecticut, we got a lot of business from Westchester, a lot from New York City. New York City people love Miami because they still kind of feel at home because it's still a city atmosphere, but there's a beach. And we don't really get a winter.
It's not quite as expensive as the Hamptons either there too.
Exactly. So New York people tend to like South Beach and Miami Beach in general and more of the ultra luxury properties. But, that was sort of where things went as time went on. And we're still now in the midst of the salt tax refugees, I like to call them.
That's good. And market rebounded strong. As the market rebounded above where it was a decade ago?
What's that?
Has the market rebounded above where it was 10 years ago and beyond that?
Oh, it has, for sure. For sure. I don't see as many distress sales as I did before. In the 2009 to 2012 range, that was when I really made the most money on retail level distress sales. And when I say retail level distress sales, I mean not buying notes. I mean buying the real estate owned. So the foreclosure's already happened and it's on the open market, and then you can go buy it. And there were some investors who were still able to make a really healthy profit off of that. You don't have to go through all of those hoops necessarily. And if you need financing, there was financing available then. Financing is loosened up again now. So there was a lot of good money to be made for everybody.
Right. Where do you see the market at now in those areas there? Are you seeing things kind of dragging out in the market a little bit on the higher end stuff, or is it people dropping, or some
ultra
stress popping
luxury
up in those areas?
Which is like 5 million and above. That's always pretty steady because these people weren't necessarily buying because they're getting an amazing deal. They're buying because that's what they want. Look at Jeff Bezos, and he was actually raised in Miami. Look at his purchase, $100 some odd million that he made on a yacht. He's not buying that because it's a fabulous investment. He's buying that because that's what he wanted to get for his wife or his girlfriend. So
to careful what say that or when that bought, because the two could be different people, right?
all the respect in the world for him. If that's, he's living his best life. He earned it. Yeah. But, and then there's the Ken Griffin, who's, buying up everything in the super luxury market. And then there's a luxury market from 1 million to say 5 million. And I see that in condos, especially in the high concentration areas, the higher density areas. That's not doing so hot right now. But at the same time, the sellers aren't necessarily super eager to sell. They're not selling because they have to, they're selling because they want to. So they're happy to hold it. And it's sort of the same thing with the 500 to 1 million range. And then below 500,000, there's not really so much inventory in the downtown area. There's a little bit, but that usually sells to first-time home buyers or people who want to actually live there. Sometimes it's a vacation buyer. And there's a tremendous amount of inventory in the 500 to 1 million range. There's not as many buyers as there used to be.
Right.
So the sort of conundrum that these sellers have, especially if they bought brand new, is that this is probably not a good realtor speak for me, but when somebody comes to you and they say they want to invest $1 million, a lot of realtors would just take the client to a brand new building because they would get a 6% commission and dump that client. The developer would say, oh, you can sell this in 2 years for 1.5. The client doesn't know any better, so they sign up for it. And then the building is delivered a year late, so 3 years later, and it's worth less than what it was when you bought it. And that's the unfortunate situation that a lot of these investors are in right now. And, at one point that it would have worked because of the currency conversion between these South American countries and the United States. But it doesn't really work that way anymore. It actually works on the other side.
Right. Opposite.
So now these people are really losing their shorts and they can't afford to sell. So they would rather just hold it and not sell it than. So I don't see a whole lot of discounts going on. And there wasn't a whole lot of lending going on during this time period of 2012 to 2016 when all these pre-construction condos were being sold. Most of them were cash. And I should note too that when a developer sells a condo to a new construction condo to a buyer, there is not a financing contingency. So if financing falls through at the last hour, you lose everything. And that's 50% of what you paid. So, it's a scary situation for these guys and I feel bad for them. So what they do is they go and they rent them out and, try to make up as much loss as they can. Thankfully, I don't have anybody in that position. But I do have some clients I've picked up along the way that were displeased with their situation and said, hey, I bought this condo from this person and it's not making me any money. I can't sell it for what I want to sell it for. And so what can we do? So I rent it out for them. I manage it for them for a while. And they're all now looking to divest and put that money into notes where they can get more than, at most, in Brickell, you're getting a 3% cap rate, which is, for a show like this and investors like this, it's not a lot.
No, 3% is not exciting. Those are like California numbers that people are looking for out there. But California is the land of fruit and nuts and all the droughts. You just got a bunch of nuts out there for the most part. But that brings up to a couple things on the note side of things. I mean, that's where we've seen a lot of people. I mean, I bought a lot of stuff all throughout Florida over the last 10 years. I haven't bought much stuff in the last 4 or 5 because the prices has increased on a lot of stuff. So I'm buying other areas now where I can still get discounts for the most part. But it's still, I mean, we're still, I still got some performing notes down in that neck of the woods. And we see a lot of people always interested in that neck of the woods, but it's also kind of a lot like Austin. Miami Beach area is a hot area. If something's discounted, the banks often know that, hey, there's kind of buyers waiting in the right price points.
That's right. Austin got really hot after I left.
Say what, Sarah?
I said Austin got really hot after I left.
Oh, yeah. Crazy hot after you left. We didn't really take too big of a hit for the most part. I mean, there's some areas like outside of Austin for the most part. And then a lot of the high rises stopped being built. You know, we had 36 pre-approved downtown condo projects that only 4 ended up getting built, and 2 of them turned from condos into an apartment complex because they just didn't, people just couldn't afford it. But we still see that aspect. I know that we look at track marketing, and you know, the average median price in the last few years has gone from like $250 to $330, you know, $340, $350 for the most part. And you know, that's starting to really start to price out people in the area here, having to either move outskirts or looking to move to other places in the state to take advantage of affordability issues. Now, have you seen that happen too? I mean, I know you're working in the Brickell and in kind of the areas you described, but are you talking to other agents and seeing what's going on around Miami?
You know, I say I just work in Brickell, but that's just where I market myself, and that's
okay.
my hub. I still do deals outside. I think last year I closed more in Coconut Grove than I did in Brickell because that's just what was moving.
Right.
And I've done a lot of great deals in Hollywood, Florida, which isn't even in Dade County. It's in Broward, but there's some crazy investments up there. Sometimes it's on the quirky side, but there's some good stuff up there.
What do you mean by that? If it's on the quirky side, there's some good investments. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, this is when you talk about investing in Miami and in Hollywood, which is where I like to work. It's a lot different than some other areas where, you know, there's one neighborhood that's really a great neighborhood and that's going to be a hub of great investments and it's going to be a safe investment and whatever. In Hollywood, there's one street is a great investment. The next street, you might be in danger. Another street is a great investment. You know, there's no real neighborhoods. It's street by street by street. And, you know, and not that the scariest streets are a bad investment. I've made some good investments for people on those streets. They're, you know, you have to make sure that the permits are all pulled. You have to make sure that all the codes are up to date. There's no code enforcement drama there. I had an investor on one of the scariest streets. And I say scariest street just because the investors on that street, they didn't really qualify their tenants before they moved them in. So there were some characters. Sure. And in one house, I don't know what happened in that house. It was separated into an illegal fourplex. And this investor owned it because, and thank God I didn't do this deal on the front side. I got him out of it. He bought this fourplex at the courthouse steps, didn't do his background check on it. And there was he bought it for $150,000, I think it was, thinking that he could sell it for $250,000. But there was a $250,000 lien from the water department. Who knows what was going on there, if it was a leak or what, but he ended up having to just dump it for $75,000. He'd lost his shirt. And I felt bad for him, but it was either that or, you know, negotiate down that code enforcement lien and bring the property back up to code and turn that garage back into one garage instead of 3 apartments. And, you know, that things like that happen in Hollywood. They happen all over, but they're more prevalent, I think, in Hollywood. But, you know, there's also some really good deals in Hollywood. There's houses that were built in the 70s and the 60s before the bedrooms were super small. So they've got huge bedrooms and big closets and solid construction and really pretty things. So when you invest in Miami, that's really when, especially if you're not a foreign investor, but an out-of-town investor, have an agent there that can go by and look at the place. Mm-hmm. You know, do your due diligence. Don't just, oh, this is in Miami, this is going to be awesome, bye. No. No.
And unfortunately, some people are like that. They look at the city and they go, oh, I'll buy it all day long. I'm like, no, you have to do due diligence. So I'm so glad you said that. Make sure you have a realtor go by. Make sure you know, if there's 12 cars in the parking lot or around it that go into the house, it probably got some extra units in there that may not be zoned or permitted for, right?
There's also another thing I need to bring up be forewarned in Miami. Miami, a lot of cities are this way, but Miami especially, there's little villages around and they're inside the city limits, but so really they're kind of Miami, but really they're kind of not, because they have their own police force and their own city hall. Like Miami Shores, for instance, And then there's unincorporated areas that are still within Miami, but they're not really in Miami. And in some of those, they have totally different code enforcement agencies. And some of them allow they call it a pre-occupancy inspection. And that's when the permit violations are found, and illegal garages closed down to make an extra bedroom, and illegal bathrooms. And a lot of investors lose a lot of money on that because they buy into those things and then they have to bring them back to the way they were before the code violation. And that's expensive.
Yeah, that definitely is. We've run into that a couple times in some of the portfolios we bought where we end up taking the property back and seeing, oh, hey, this owner got creative in their house trying to, stack people in there for the most part as best they could, turn into a multiplex versus a single family resident. The foreclosure timeframes have really sped up in Miami, or South Florida anyway, we should say that. Instead of being 2 years, we're seeing stuff 9 months, 12 months for the most part. It's really kind of cut in half out there. Are you seeing, obviously we're talking about investment dollars coming up from the Northeast area, but at one point there was a lot of like 40 cents about every dollar in South Florida real estate was international money. Where do you think more of the international money is coming from these days? Is it still not Brazil or Venezuela? It's other areas you see?
We still see a lot more now from Colombia and Mexico.
Okay.
Everybody keeps saying that China's going to become a big player. They've been saying that for years, but they even made a direct flight from MIA to Hong Kong, and it hadn't happened.
It's probably not being a lot of people on there right now either, though, too.
I know, right? No, but even before the whole coronavirus.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about foreign money coming, from China, and you're right about that. We had a few people that reached out to us like, oh, we're bringing in some China money. I'm like, well, tell me when the money actually arrives, and then we'll start talking.
Let me see it happen. I'll tell you another place that's new, sort of new on the map over the last 2 years, is Turkey and Saudi Arabia.
Oh, really? I can see Saudi Arabia buying a lot here. Turkey's interesting. That's new. But that's the thing is, depending on what their dollar versus our dollar are doing and the real estate stuff and other things like that, there's opportunity still available out there. Are you still seeing a lot of the high end stuff, high rises getting built up, or that slowed down quite a bit over the last few years?
It slowed down quite a bit. What's happened in there is over the last probably 5 or 6 years, between 2012 and 2018, that's been more of the mid-range sort of, so around 500,000 to 1.5 million. And then, because the market really slowed down on that market. So then they started with super luxury, which has done well. But those buildings are all starting to be delivered now. And these are your Ritz-Carltons, your Faena. Faena was a couple of years ago, but Ritz-Carltons are opening right now. And then Muse, which is a building in Sunny Isles, which is amazing. The views are
gorgeous property. I actually remember walking by that one when it was first being built, and like, man, this place is going to end up being gorgeous.
I wish that you had connected with me while you were in town. We spoke a little bit, but I wish that you had time to come with me on a couple of views. I could have taken you to the top of that. It's sick. It's crazy.
Right. Now with the investors, with you working with investors, and we talked a little bit about, hey, you've been investing stuff. What's kind of your favorite thing? What do you like? What do you love investing? What kind of gets you rocking and rolling when it comes to your own portfolio, your own investment dollar?
I kind of like the Hollywood properties.
All right. The good neighborhoods, or even a little bit of the questionable ones?
There's two things here. One other point that I wanted to make about what's moving now is the trend now that the super luxury properties are all kind of being opened up and sold out. The new hot thing that a lot of people ask about is Airbnb in Miami. And I don't advise people to buy that. It's just my personal choice as a broker. I don't advise it because it's just too volatile. In Miami Beach, they still have all of the drama going back and forth with the city over whether or not it's legal. In the city of Miami, as of now, it's legal, but that could change at any time. And the market's really kind of being flooded with it. Mm-hmm. If there are investors that want to buy that specifically, I advise 2 buildings in Brickell that I would send people to, and then maybe a couple in some other areas, or buy a house. But I don't advise those new construction Airbnb buildings. They're just too filled with drama and too filled with risk.
Right. And that's exactly what happened here in Austin, Texas. Airbnbs are illegal in the city limits of Austin, Texas. And
I think you guys had the same, because y'all have a Nativo building, don't you?
yes. Yep.
We do too. And it's all filled with questions right now.
Yep.
Lawsuits.
Yep.
Anyway.
Now, one of the things too that I saw happen in some of the stuff there is obviously you have to worry about deferred maintenance and extra costs, especially on some of the condos with COAs, condo associations. Now you have the nice thing there if you're buying the note where you've got safe harbor, whereas a note buyer, if you do buy a note and then foreclose, you're not paying the full association dues. But you as the owner, if you're going and buying it, you've got to worry about that deferred maintenance kind of kicking in too and hurting your pocketbook, right?
You do. And that changes from city to city, how much it is, because there is a regulation. I'm not 100% sure what it is right now, because they could have changed it over the last couple of months, but it was where if it was a foreclosure sale, then the person who owned the note would only have to pay a year or 2 years instead of having to pay whatever they owed, which was sometimes 5 or 6 years, because people can be operators. They can stay in properties for years while it's in the middle of foreclosure. And that's another thing to be careful of. Do your due diligence when you're about to buy a note. Make sure people really want to move out, because if they don't, they may not move out.
We had one situation where a family of 4 people were on the mortgage, and each one, when it came down to it, took the time to file bankruptcy. So it drug out in the BK courts for basically roughly that 4-year period. When one would do it, then later on another one would do it, and then that would get discharged, and the third person would do it. Oh my gosh. Luckily we were getting it at a steal, but it was a bit pain in the rear. Yeah.
But for every story like that, there's a story like, every now and again you find a unicorn. Like I found a unit back in the late summer in Aventura, and the note was for sale for $750. It was quiet. It wasn't like on the market. It was just something I heard about under the table. Yep. And the person who lived in the property that was going to be foreclosed, he wanted to let it go. It was a strategic foreclosure. And he said, just buy it and resell the property. I don't care. I'm out. I'm moving back to wherever I came from. I'm done. And so somebody made some good money on that one. Unfortunately, it wasn't any of my investors. They weren't interested.
Yeah.
But the property was worth 1.5.
That's a nice 100% return on your investment if you can make it happen. For sure. It's tying up. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of the higher end note purchases people kind of shy away from, because it does tie up a lot of capital in one asset that could potentially get drug out before closures and attorneys. I was sitting in the Miami airport one day talking with a gentleman across from me, and we got to visit, and I asked him what he did. He was like, I'm an international lip gloss salesman. I have this lip gloss company. And I'm like, okay.
And he's worth $1 zillion, and he drives a Bugatti too, right? Yeah,
exactly. He goes, and he asked me what I did, and he started laughing when I told him I bought and sold debt. He's like, oh, you would love my deal. I've got a $4 million mansion on Miami Beach that is maybe worth $2 million now because of everything. And I haven't paid the mortgage in 3 years. It's cheaper to pay my attorney every month to drag this thing out. I'm living basically for free. And I'm like, yeah.
What an operator.
Exactly. What a crazy operator. He goes, I bought another house that I used a cash out refi 4 years ago, and pull $500,000 in equity out, bought a house for cash that has no mortgage on it, but that's what's part of that $4 million mortgage. It's not quite fraud, but is it?
Not quite, but kinda. It might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Some other areas that are really cool for investment, and one thing to look for when you're investing in Miami is people really flock to certain school districts.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, which I've seen people do crazy things to get into the school district. I mean, rent a whole separate apartment just to be in the area. Get put on somebody else's mortgage. They'll do anything to get in the school district. Is Sunset Elementary. And I actually saw a short sale in the Sunset Elementary School District when I was, doing some numbers yesterday. And it was probably a little bit of a risky short sale. They were saying they want you to buy the note and then foreclose the note, which is fine, but I'm a little bit questionable about that if it comes from the MLS.
Yeah.
I would rather it come from the bank.
Yeah, I would rather see it be yeah, that's kind of a weird situation. Do you know who the bank was on that?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I mean, I could go back and check if anybody's curious. It was
you and I need to talk about that afterwards. We won't do it here publicly for everybody, but that might be something. Okay.
But the property had been on the market for forever. The house, it was a pretty house, maybe a tear down. They were marketing it as a tear down and rebuild, but I thought it was a pretty house to begin with, as long as they've kept it up. Mm-hmm. And it was on a prestigious street, and I think it was something like $1.8 million. But that was, again, on the higher end. There's other areas like Kendall or Doral that have great schools, and you don't necessarily have to drop that much money. Mm-hmm.
Things move pretty quickly on the MLS there. If it's priced right, is it priced in quarterly?
If it's priced right, yes. If it's priced right and it's in a hot area, then yes. If it's in a, and when I say an okay area, I mean something like, if you list a condo in Brickell right now, be prepared for 4 months.
Okay.
If you list in the Sunset School District, it could be days.
Mm-hmm. All dependent on zip code and area, what's going on there too, which, it happens everywhere. Here in Austin, we see a lot of things with less than a 2-month inventory for the most part. So a lot of stuff, if it's priced even close to being right, stuff is getting bought relatively quickly in just a matter of 30 days or less for the most part. So that's good to be a seller in the right thing. It's not always good if you're a buyer, if you're trying to look at things.
Well, but unicorns pop up.
They do.
But if you're a buyer with a time frame, if you're doing a 1031 or something, then I don't know, but
you might need to do a deferred sales trust if you're limited on your time frame. We just had Brett Swartz on, who handles all of that stuff, and he's out of California, but he does stuff in Miami. We were just actually talking about that market. He's working with a client on a $5 million 1031, and the guy ended up doing a deferred sales trust, so he bought him time. He didn't have to make an immediate impact in his 45 days or 180 days to close on the thing. So
that's smart.
It is smart, definitely out there. With you liking the Hollywood areas and stuff, like you like fix and flips, you like rentals. I know you're knowledgeable in the note space there for it. What do you like the most?
I like the Hollywood area because it's sort of shown its character throughout time, and I love the fix and flip. I love the architecture in the area. The bedrooms are nice and big, and for the same house that you would get in on a nice street in Hollywood, you would pay maybe $500,000 in Hollywood, whereas in Coral Gables it would be $2 million. Yeah,
much bigger bang for your buck and value for dollar. And that's are you seeing a decrease in or increase in rent rates in that $500,000 or less rate, and then maybe a decrease in rates in the higher end if stuff is sitting there long term?
I'm seeing an increase in the single family homes and a decrease. Well, not necessarily a decrease, but a stagnation in that area in condos.
Awesome. Where do you think the market's going to be in the next 24 to 36 months? Do you think it'll still keep going up, or do you think we're due for a correction?
You know what? I think they've diversified enough, and there's enough things coming into, as far as infrastructure coming into Miami, that I don't think we're going to see the big crash like we did.
Right.
I think that these investors who are kind of hurting right now and bought pre-construction are going to start trickling off and selling for what they can sell. I do see things in the Brickell area, the condos, selling for about 93% of list price. So, people aren't taking a bath but that's on the retail market. You also every now and again see a bank that's struggling, that over leveraged themselves, and they'll dump their notes. That happened to me a couple of years ago, and it was great.
Yeah. It's always, I keep waiting for that. We're not going to see 2008 numbers. I mean, I remember getting lists in from US Century and Oceans Bank down that neck of the woods.
Those were great.
Those are totally great. I actually saw an asset manager. He's at a different bank now, but he was the head of secondary marketing over at US Century Bank. And I was talking to him the other day because he's speaking on a panel at a bigger event, and he was like, I didn't talk to him a couple of years. I called him. He's like, "Is this the Note guy?" And I started laughing because he remembered me. I was going back and forth. I guess that's what happens when you take a guy out to the Miami Heat game and to a finals game in Miami when you're in town. They tend to remember it.
They remember you.
Now that was one of the most interesting things that we did see is we have bought some notes and short sales from some of the guys that played for the Dolphins back a few years ago. Some of the previous Heat players, and that kind of brings me to the thing. When LeBron left Miami, they said that was about a $200 million hit to the economy. Would you agree to that, or thinking that wasn't that big of a difference?
Did LeBron hurt the economy?
Yeah, when he left a little bit.
I'm sorry, someone came in and passed me a note just now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think it hurt the Miami Heat economy as far as ticket sales.
No.
And there used to be this whole vibe about the Miami Heat were going to play when it was D-Wade and LeBron, and that sort of went away.
Yeah.
Miami fans they're really intense, but they're also very fickle. So I don't think it really hurt real estate as much as it hurt the Miami Heat ticket sales.
There you go. Or maybe a little bit of the tourism with the hotels and things like that going to the restaurants in downtown area. That makes sense.
But around the same time when all that stuff happened with the Miami Heat, there was a new cruise ship terminal that opened up right around the corner. And so that brought a whole bunch of new people in, and the new mall in Brickell opened, and you may not believe it that people will travel for a new mall, but people will.
Yeah. We have seen that here in South Texas, or here south of us in San Marcos.
Oh,
every weekend, busloads and busloads and busloads coming up from the Valley or Mexico, especially on tax-free weekends and things like that. It's so overcrowded in the outlet malls. I don't even go there anymore because it just gets so crazy on the weekends.
We used to have in Miami, there's people fly in from Venezuela and from Brazil, and they bring their big Gucci and Louis Vuitton suitcases that are empty, and they take them through the malls and they just fill it up, and then they fly back. So those probably weren't the people that were going to the Heat games, but but that did help to keep the economy sort of propped up.
There you go. Exactly. Now, Sarah, what's the best way for those that are listening to this, that are looking for some help in the Miami market, or looking to buy, or what's the best way for people to reach out to you, to touch base with you and work with you?
Hello?
You froze there a little bit. I was saying, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, to connect with you when they need somebody, when they need to hire an agent in Miami to help them out with some stuff? All right, Sarah. Well, hey, I really appreciate you taking time on your busy schedule to come on and share your insights in the Miami and South Florida markets out there. Absolutely love what you're doing. I know you're taking some time here in Texas, but headed back home. You're still working, though, in the market right now on helping people buy and sell and invest in that market. What's the best way for folks to reach out to you, to connect with you, to bring you on as their expert agent in the area?
I am currently, right this moment, I'm in Texas. My mother, unfortunately, came down with cancer. So I'm going to help her get better, but I am still actively working in Miami. 3 closings this month. I'm not slowing down. But if people want to reach me, I'm very active on Facebook. You can reach me on Instagram at Sarah Elles. My phone number is 786-385-6846. And my email address is sarahelles@sarahelles.com.
Right. Could you repeat your phone number one more time for everybody?
Sure. 786-385-6846.
Awesome. And everybody, we'll have all that information in the show notes as well for you, or in the description down there in YouTube as well for you. But Sarah, thank you so much for coming on again, and prayers and thoughts with you and your mom as she was working through her cancer. I know that she's working on it and working hard on a daily basis. And it's great for you to come from Miami back here to help out and help assist with her and everything like that. So we'll keep
thank you so much for having me. I feel lucky that my job allowed me to come and be here for my mom, but still be active there. So we work it out.
Exactly. The beauty
and I'll have the sunshine behind me again.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you later. All right.
Have a beautiful day.
Thanks.
Okay,
all right, guys and gals, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you like the South Florida market, you like that Miami area, Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale area, Sarah's an amazing realtor, amazing person, and she's got an amazing network of people out there too. As you heard her say, she's here in Texas right now, but still working with agents. She's got an amazing team out that neck of the woods, and an amazing company that she works for. So I don't know anybody who's more of a straight shooter when it comes to telling you the real truth of what's going on in the market. And if that's the beauty about real estate, is you find a good agent knowledgeable like Sarah. She'll tell you, hey, I think this is a great investment, and here's what I really believe. Not just somebody, hey, let's get you closed on that so I get my commission to move on to the next one. She really does care about her clients, and it's proof is in the pudding, the people that she's surrounded by. So check her out. Go take some action, and we'll see you all at the top, everybody.